On this week's episode of Where We Are, we have presidential rankings and pasta rankings. That's right, it's the first episode of the month. We're glad to have you with us. This is Where We Are. You're listening to Where We Are. We are the Wheres. I'm Michael.
I'm Melissa.
Melissa.
Yep.
It's the end of the week.
We're at the beginning of another month, and so we have our rankings episodes. We are almost a year out from the general election, and we're just about 3 hours out from eating pasta. So this is timely in many ways. So glad to be back for an episode. Want to thank those of you who participated in the drive for the Substack for Where We Are, which supports kind of the podcast, supports the newsletter, everything. We had so many new subscribers. It was really great. And so welcome to new listeners, new members of the community. But yeah, Melissa was really happy with how that turned out.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. And I just also want to say that this is our second ranking that's coming up before we move on from that. If you want to go back to our very first ranking for the 2024 GOP primary, it's episode 75, which aired on August 6th. So I want to make that note for you all.
Good note.
What's up with you, Michael?
A couple notes related to the Center for Christianity and Public Life. First, applications for the 2024 cohort of the Public Life Fellowship Program closed September 10th. So this is your last week to apply. This is your last week to tell your friends or coworker to apply. Just the brief, this is a 9-month intensive fellowship program that includes 3 in-person retreats. And fellows are Christians who are contributing to our civic life. Your work can be in a number of different civic sectors. We think of 6 primarily, though applications are open to anyone, but we particularly draw from those in civic philanthropy, those in ministry, those in journalism, those in academia, those in government, and those in the nonprofit think tank space. And it's a wonderful program. The first year, the first cohort has just been incredible, and we're excited to welcome a new group in 2024, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So go to ccpubliclife.org and apply, send the program details to others. We'd really appreciate it. The second note, Melissa, is our summit is just over 2 months away. And would love for you to make plans now to be in Washington, D.C., November 6th and 7th. You can register early bird pricing is good through September 4th. And so you can go to ccpubliclife.org, go find the summit page. You should be able to find it pretty easily, and buy your tickets now. We'd love to have you with us. It's going to be an amazing time. We just started this week rolling out speakers, and we'll be rolling out more in the weeks to come. But Dr. C.J. Rhodes will be with us. Michael Sakasis, who's brilliant, and we'll be talking about AI. And so would love to have you join us in D.C. It's called For the Good of the Public, and it's CCPL's inaugural summit. And so be there with us to learn together, to celebrate together. It'll be wonderful. So, Melissa, those are the main updates I have, but we're heading into a busy fall for CCPL.
Yeah, it's going to be so busy. You've got so much going on, but this summit, I've seen the speaker list, and it's pretty darn cool. So I would get that early bird pricing now. It'll expire in a couple days, so get on it. But let's move on to our GOP Power Rankings.
All right. I don't know if excited is the right word, but let's get to it.
Here comes the best part.
Crescendo. Crescendo. Okay. Let's wind it down. It is your second GOP presidential candidate ranking. This for the month of September 2023. We've learned quite a bit.
We have learned a lot.
The
ranking has changed.
The ranking has changed pretty significantly, and so let's get to it. We do try and move through this pretty speedily. Let's start at number 9 with Asa.
Yep, former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson.
Yeah, and he made decent points, but you just kind of feel like if there's you just kind of feel like Christie is, if there's some turn in the primary where someone who forcefully opposes Trump is really like running full on against Trump, that there are others who would get there ahead of Hutchinson. It's a bit difficult for him. He's not an incumbent governor. He didn't have a huge profile before getting in. He doesn't have a ton of money, and I don't think he made that big of an impact on the debate stage. Mm-hmm. I do think, Melissa, he made a bigger impact on the debate stage, I think, though it's close, than number 8, which is Doug Burgum.
Doug Burgum, North Dakota.
And we had Burgum a bit higher last month, in large part because he has significant financial resources. He's put in his own money into this race, but he really did not make an impact in the debate, and so that's the main reason why he drops. He may we'll see if he gets another shot in October, and we'll sort of say this again. The first debate, you go back and watch. I mean, I'm not genuinely recommending this. You probably have better things to do, but if you're interested, go back and watch the first debates for other primary contests, and really, they're just like people getting their legs under them. They don't really tell you that much about who's going to win. Some people pop, some people learn a lot from that first debate, and it helps them down the road. That might be Burgum, but I don't think he gets many more bites at the apple, if any. And so Hutchinson 9th, Burgum 8. And Melissa, I should just, because we didn't really introduce this because this is the second time we're doing it, just for listeners, these rankings are not our top 9 candidates. Mm-hmm. These rankings are assessing likelihood that they will win the primary, and so it's analytical, not sure preference. Creeps in, and instincts. Certainly, there's room for that, but this is not sort of Melissa and Michael's faves. 7, Chris Christie.
Yep.
He did make an impact in the debate, as we discussed last week. It was a little difficult, the fact that that Trump wasn't there. I think Christie, of all the candidates, was kind of relying on Trump showing up, and we'll see if he gets that opportunity down the road. It is tough to see a party where 60% of primary voters are at the very least open to supporting Trump, and really some polling suggests that might be sort of Trump's base. I question that, but with Trump receiving 60% in a lot of this polling, hard to see someone like Christie winning the nomination. The first big shakeup we have in these rankings, Melissa, comes at number 6. Mm-hmm. And we dropped Senator Tim Scott down to number 6.
Yep. He was at number 3 previously.
And I will say, I think 3 through, and honestly, really 2 through 6, fairly tightly, fairly close. And I think Scott could rebound with a strong debate performance. But again, as we think about that South Carolina primary within the primary between Scott and Haley, Haley made a bigger impact in the debate, and I'm not quite sure that Scott. Well, we'll talk about some of the Trump dynamics a little bit later on, but Scott still has significant money, not as much as DeSantis. He didn't raise as much off of the debate as Haley and some of the other candidates. I still think Scott's a relatively potent political talent, and he's still in this race, but he needs to do much better in the debate later this month at the Reagan Library. Melissa, any comments on Scott, or any comments on the sort of bottom 4 here? Scott, Christie, Burgum, Hutchinson?
Yeah, Christie is polling 3rd in New Hampshire because that's what he's going after. That's what his playbook, besides obviously being the very anti-Trump outspoken candidate, the second part of his playbook is going after New Hampshire, and he's polling 3rd there. Meanwhile, Scott is polling 3rd in Iowa, and so I would put them up just a little bit more compared to we're about to say who number 5 is. Just based on some polling in the first 2 states, which matter the most compared to where national polling is, because those 2 states speak to the momentum.
This is true.
Of what news coverage will have. It's whoever comes in 2nd and 3rd in Iowa will have a huge impact on what they do in New Hampshire, and so on and so forth, as you get to South Carolina, where you have the primary within the primary between Scott and Haley, potentially, unless one of them drops out. So I would put up Scott and Christie up 1 spot each and drop number 5 to number 7. But what is number 5 for you?
Yeah, well, here's what I'd say on that, Melissa, which is I haven't seen, there is not great polling on the state so far because the votes are still so far away. And so I just can't weight the state polling that heavily. I mean, I don't know that there's been 4 Iowa or New Hampshire polls, 4 Iowa or 4 New Hampshire polls, in the last month. So there have been.
We've got 2 in.
So the Des Moines Register poll, which is the big Iowa poll, the latest we have for that is August 13th through 17th.
Yes.
So that was leading into the debate.
Yes. I would love to see that. Yeah. And then New Hampshire, we have two polls as well. So 2 polls in Iowa, 2 polls in New Hampshire in August. But that last one in New Hampshire was also the 14th through the 16th, so before the debate as well.
Yeah.
With Christie in 3rd and Scott in 4th in New Hampshire.
Yeah. So I just need some I think the polling will improve as we get deeper into the fall, but it's hard to weigh that too seriously. I put against, in some ways against my better judgment, Mike Pence at 5.
At number 5, yes.
He was strong, commanded attention in the debate. It made me more interested than I was before to see Pence in a debate with Trump. Mm-hmm. And it gave me confidence. Like Pence was able to make a moment in that debate. And you just kind of wonder if Mike Pence was able to say to President Trump's face, that, what you're saying isn't true. I was there with you in the Oval. And what kind of impact that would have. So I still think that there's some really serious problems with the idea of Mike Pence's candidacy, but because he had such a strong debate performance, it does. I'm hearing he was able to raise a bit more than he has out of that. I have him at 5. His name recognition, I think helps. And I do think his stature, I'm willing to consider that it might be an asset. It was very funny in the debate. He kept on referring to his experience. It was a very Hillary Clinton-esque debate performance. Mm-hmm. The only problem is that, Hillary was the presumptive nominee in 2008 and in 2016, and Mike Pence is polling at very poorly in the states and nationally, and so it came across as a bit more sort of pathetic is way too strong of a term, but whatever a slight a softer softer synonym is for that. But Melissa, have your feelings about Pence changed at all as we've gotten deeper into this race?
No, they've grown worse. And I have nothing there is so much that could be there for him, but from because I was watching him at the Iowa State Fair in the month of August as well, which is another sort of bell. But obviously, it's not polling. Obviously, they're not interviewing every single person there. But the kind of heckling that he gets at his events, it just strikes me that, if you really don't want to be for Trump, then people are going to DeSantis, and they like DeSantis, and they're not going towards a Pence. They're just heckling Pence. Pence is the traitor to Trump, whereas DeSantis is the alternative, and that's sort of been the framing for a while now. And the sort of traitor label, I just don't know how he gets over that eventually. How do you see that working out, or how much stock do you put in that?
Yeah, here's the thing though, right? So this is why that moment in the debate where the moderators and Pence really pressed DeSantis to say whether he thought Pence did the right thing.
Oh, of course. Mm-hmm.
It was so interesting because you could argue that that Trump is going to win unless the very minimum that needs to happen is January 6th, a majority of Republican primary voters need to decide that what happened that day was not cool. Was not. And I don't think that has happened yet. But everyone in the race other than Trump needs that to happen. And so at some point, and I'll say a bit more about this later on, but at some point the race is going to turn to fully prosecuting the case against Trump. And I think there are reasons why it hasn't yet. I'm not completely sold on whether they're good reasons, but yeah. But so if that happens, Pence kind of stands to be the one to benefit. If there is a judgment that is made that January 6th, that Trump was wrong on January 6th, then the immediate consequence of that is that Mike Pence was right. And so what happens if that narrative turns and Pence is there to sort of benefit from it? I do think he's gotten like way too much credit for what he, but that's just what the state of play is. Like that's just how the narrative is played out. And so I'm slightly warmer to Mike Pence having a pathway now than I was a month ago, and certainly than I was, early in the summer. All right, number 4, Vivek Ramaswamy. I really don't like having him this high. I actually think he's on a downward trajectory since the debate. But this is kind of one of the things where he moves up because everyone else kind of moved down. Basically, I do think obvious weaknesses of his candidacy really shone through in the debate. And I do think he is like too online. I do think he thinks there's a wider constituency for his shtick than there is. But he has financial resources. He does strike some people as confident and smart and willing to speak the truth. And so we have him at number 4. I've commented on this before, but there is this debate in the primary between those who have a sort of negative view about the state of the country and the country's future, and those who have a more hopeful disposition. Pence, Scott, Haley obviously being on the positive side, Trump, DeSantis, Ramaswamy being on the negative. And that seems to be where the energy is in the Republican primary, because in terms of national polling, at least until the debate, those were the top 3. All of the top 3 highest ranking candidates were on the sort of negative side of the ledger. And so I have Ramaswamy at 4. I do think he has such a target on his back, and I do think that he is a weaker target than Trump. Like, it's one thing for Trump to have people going after him. Trump has sort of proven to be kind of Teflon. I don't think Ramaswamy is Teflon, and so that's why. Any comments about Ramaswamy, Melissa?
No, I think his ranking is correct.
Yeah. Number 3, Nikki Haley. And again, this may seem like, I see that and I think, again, I really bunch up 3 through 6 and maybe even now 2 through 6 really tightly. So
Yes.
to say Haley is
I do too.
3 doesn't mean that she's that far ahead of Pence or Scott.
Yep.
But she had a great debate performance. She raised money out of the debate. There's a Wall Street Journal poll out today that shows her polling 3rd nationally, which is the best that she's done. A little bump for Haley, and so we're seeing some signs her debate performance has made a difference. I do think she prepares better than any of the other candidates. Like if it was raw political talent alone, I think she'd win. She'd win this thing, or at least be down to a. Well, no, I won't even say that. I think political talent has to include being able to talk about issues in a coherent way. So she'd take the cake there. But I think the question is just, is she where the Republican primary voter is? And that's a question. Mm-hmm. Some of my Never Trump friends are very negative on that question. And I wrote about this week for the Substack. Folks can read my essay on Never Trump Republicans, I think, kind of giving the race to Trump through their cynicism prematurely, sort of discounting that Trump could lose in a way that I don't find helpful. and what they're because the idea that the party has left them is so personal and such a touchstone in their own sort of thought life. I think they're forgetting how fickle voters can be. I think they're forgetting that the power of leadership. Now it has to strike at the right moment, and I'm not saying that. I think who's number one is that's one thing that hasn't changed from last month to this month. But Haley showed some real potential that I think warrants her being in the third slot for this month's ratings.
Yep. When you look at national polling, and there were a bunch in the month of August, specifically in the last, week, so very much after the debate, Haley had the biggest bump of any of the candidates compared to Ramaswamy. DeSantis did recover like a little bit nationally. I think that you're completely right in that it's up to voters to decide if she is the kind, if they're ready for her. Because during that debate, it was honestly, from like a comms perspective, messaging perspective, it was really fascinating to see her succeed in being quite nuanced with some of her answers, and for it to come out clearly, succinctly, understandably, plain English, compellingly, all of those things at once, when in general over since 2016 with Trump, with the rise, when Trump finally started rising in 2016, sort of what he got rid of was that kind of politics of nuance, of some answers being somewhere in the middle, where rather than being very clear cut, where he sort of presented a politics that's very clear cut, and it's my way or the highway. I am wrong. I am right. Sorry, I am right, and you are wrong. And so I'll be very, very interested to see if Haley's team has her continue going down that road in terms of being very nuanced and speaking directly to the American people, treating GOP voters as if they have a choice, treating GOP voters as if they have a lot of conflicting thoughts about things rather than just a single thought about various issues. I'm really looking forward to this coming debate at the end of this month, specifically for her performance over anybody else's, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, right. Like, can her case sort of evolve, and can it build, or did we see sort of just a strong first performance?
Yeah, that's exactly what is she going to be able to combine over the long haul through multiple performances, through her campaigning across the country, obviously in the very first few states, this nuanced but strongman kind of approach. I think that's the lane that her team may have identified and found and said, because the GOP, since 2016 has proven that voters would like a strong man in power, combining that with the nuance that she can bring to the table, because she is just actually very good at delivering clear-cut messages that do actually have nuance.
Yeah. All right, number 2, DeSantis. Still, he's taken a real beating.
He sure has.
For the last month. I'm not convinced that his campaign shakeup. I haven't seen strong evidence of the shakeup having sort of putting him on a different trajectory. But what is the case is his super PAC still has 90 million plus, and until someone really challenges him and tops him, which I think I was surprised he didn't take more fire at the debate.
Me too.
But that sort of leads me to my main point that I want to make in the rankings. I think I've seen a lot of commentary that this is developing just like it did in 2016, everyone's afraid to take on Trump. And so Trump keeps on getting oxygen, and then he's going to be invincible. In my thinking, like, that could be true. Maybe if it was just Trump critiques from the Republican candidates nonstop, starting in June, just like none of this sort of when reporters ask, them saying, "Oh, I want to talk about the future, not the past," kind of stuff, as they did in the debates. None of this, this race isn't about Donald Trump. But like every time they had the opportunity, they just took it to Trump. Maybe that would have a positive. Maybe that would make it less likely that Trump would be the nominee. But one common mistake in politics is fighting. Is running campaigns entirely based on the lessons of the previous campaign when this is a different campaign.
Yep.
The reason why, and I do agree that the Republican candidates should have recognized Trump's the threat of Trump's candidacy much earlier on, but that's kind of the whole point. The argument in 2016 was, they let Trump steadily grow and become tenable, become a possible nominee. And when the argument is they should have just, they should have undercut that before it got steam. And I think there's merit to that. But in 2024, he's already been president. He's already been. He is the front runner now. He wasn't the front runner for the whole for much of the race in 2016. And I do think, and again, I'm not like 100% sold on this. I could see arguments for all of the candidates just going after the front runner out of the gate. I do think that I could see DeSantis saying, look, this field is going to narrow. If I take my best shots at Trump when no one's watching, when no one's paying attention, I'll get destroyed. And then it'll be one less person. The person certainly with the most financial resources, DeSantis, won't be standing there to take him on when it really counts, which, let's be clear, is December, January, February, not March, not April. And so that would be just I understand people's frustration. Oh, the debate. Why didn't they really go after Trump? I think we need to be careful not to think that the way to win in 2024 is just to do what should have been done in 2016. I think this is a different race. I think especially with Trump not on the debate stage. No, if you're gonna go after him, he needs to be in the room. That's when the moment will be. So DeSantis is still number 2. I think he's a weak number 2. I wouldn't be surprised if in October someone had displaced him. Traditionally, these campaigns pick up after Labor Day, and so we're heading into Labor Day now, and the race is only going to get more intense. More people are going to be paying attention. There are going to be more opportunities for contrast to be made between the candidates. But I have DeSantis at number 2. That obviously leaves at number 1 Donald Trump, who seems stronger than ever despite the indictments, despite mugshots. Wall Street Journal has a poll out showing him at almost 60% support. And so he is the most likely nominee by far at this point. And he's number 1. He's number 1A 1B, 1C. I mean, just number 2 is pretty far behind him. Melissa, any comments?
Yeah, he's so far ahead now in the national polling. What you just said, like 60 points ahead in one. I'm
Not 60 points ahead. He's at 60.
He's at 60.
about
I'm so
60,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, he's about 39 points ahead of DeSantis on the averages. Apologies. My main question is he he has such a gap right now that if, say, he were to somehow join the next debate and folks were able to take him on, knock him down a peg or two, or, Haley or DeSantis, after Labor Day gain even more momentum, or Scott, or one of them, that the news cycle will reward heavily Trump dropping even like 5 points in polling. To the
Absolutely
point
right, Melissa.
where the snowball effect of that kind of coverage of him becoming the weak candidate again,
I think that's so
will
right.
be so powerful compared to if he were only 15 points ahead of DeSantis or 10 points ahead of DeSantis. It were a much tighter race. That if he dropped by 5 points, yes, he would be even closer to number 2. But I feel like the news cycle, the role of the media around a 5 to 10 point drop over the next month or two could drop him even further in the polling because of the perceived power and prestige and momentum and we want a winning guy, winning woman, whatever type thing that a voter might be looking for, who it would be a MAGA or Trump type voter. I just want to put that out there, that I've been thinking about that over the last couple of days.
I think that's so smart, and I think that's exactly right. And I think the media is primed for it too.
Yeah.
And I think Fox News is primed for it too.
Yes, they are.
I think Fox News desperately wants a competitive primary.
And here's the thing, Fox Business is the next one holding this September, I think it's 27th debate in California. And so Fox is hosting it again. I think they're just really hoping that Trump will show up. And honestly, Trump's team has probably seen the benefit of him not showing up, obviously. I would not be surprised if he didn't, but the ego might come out and he could show up.
Yeah.
But anyways, if Haley, DeSantis, Pence, Scott, any of them have any kind of momentum and they chip it off of Trump versus chipping it off of someone else, say if Asa Hutchinson finally drops out or Burgum drops out, that sort of thing, and they gain even there, yeah, I think the momentum around that narrative could be pretty
potent.
Potent, yes. Potent
Yes.
is the right word, yes.
All right, so there is. I mean, I think that's a really smart comment to end the ranking on. I think that's something for folks to watch over the coming weeks and months. That's our ranking, our September ranking. Again, we'll do our next ranking the first episode of October, and we'll have another debate. I'll feed into that. We'll have quarterly fundraising numbers to feed into that. And so that'll be, I think we'll see this race develop quite a bit in a month's time. Melissa, let's take a quick break. When we get back, pasta rankings. Pasta. And we're back. You're listening to Where We Are. And we're about to share our September pasta rankings.
Si tu la parla miezza americano, quando si fa l'amore sotto la luna, come te viene in capo di I love you. Papa l'americano.
Oh, yeah.
I just think this is a complete bop. I mean, I just love that song so much.
So this song became popular in 2011, Michael and I got married and we took our honeymoon in Italy. We were so young, 22, 23. It was Michael's first time abroad. And that song by Yolanda Be Cool and D-Cup, it's called We Know Speak Americano. It became a hit while we were in Italy. So we'd be driving in our very small engined Fiat up little mountains with this song going. It was such a vibe.
It was such a vibe. We are so glad to bring to you our September pasta rankings. Melissa, let's kick it off. What do you have at 9?
Okay, so the bottom half of this ranking is in preparation for fall and for things getting cold. These are all pastas that you eat when you're a little bit chilly and you want to like feel the fall breeze wafting around your home while you eat your dinner. All right, here we go. So number 9 is, this was on the ranking last month. It's dropped a little bit, but that's because I had some move up to the top and some new rankings. Number 9 is agnolotti, which like we described last month are these tiny pockets, usually filled with meat, some kind of like pork or cheese sometimes, but the pork kind is like the real kind from Piedmont. And we love these so much in a brodo, in like a chicken or whatever vegetable soup broth that you have.
Yeah, that's how we do it. I mean, so in Piedmont, they will do it in the broth.
They'll
but
serve it with like a hazelnut sauce or something like that.
Yeah.
And then number 8, this was also on the rankings last month, and this is because it's a shape of pasta that I like going with my favorite dish ever. It's the Vesuvio pasta.
Yes.
It's like this little swirly thing. You just got to go Google it, Vesuvio. It's such a fun shape for a pasta, and we always serve it with our salsa genovese, which is a companion dish that you start cooking in the fall and winter. It's made with onions and pork shoulder. Best thing. We've shared it on our Substack a bunch, this recipe, over the last 4 years since we've been on Substack. And anybody who's followed us for a while, you're probably like, please stop talking about salsa genovese. And I will tell you, I will never stop talking about salsa genovese. Number 7, tortellini. Another little pocket type pasta filled with some kind of cheese or meat, also that we like to put in chicken broth, especially in winter. And number 6 is tagliatelle, which is, a sort of long, thicker pasta, perfect for like a meat sauce, a bolognese, something delicious, catches a lot of sauce. So those are my bottom 6 rankings, and they were on last month's rankings. And the next 5, 4 out of 5 of them are brand new. So number 5 is pacchieri. I've probably just butchered that, but we YouTubed it before we did this podcast. But pacchieri, it's like the sister pasta to rigatoni. It's slightly shorter than rigatoni, but wider than rigatoni. And right now, I'm just kind of obsessed with rigatoni type shapes. And pasta is just so good.
So the thing with this is it's most traditionally, like most well known with a fish sauce.
Yes.
So that's what makes it interesting. That it is typically used with a fish sauce. I love it. I think it's a wonderful shape. And so, I think this definitely deserves to be a 5.
And of course, number 4 would be rigatoni, because rigatoni, I feel, is like a staple in Italian-American households and American households in general. And I love rigatoni.
It's been I feel like there have been seasons in my life where I've been like, rigatoni, that's like so conventional.
Basic.
But basic, but there's something comforting about it.
Yes.
If you
So
put
comforting.
it with like I don't like rigatoni with like a sauce that you made in 8 minutes.
No.
But you put like a long,
Short
like a
rib.
ragu, like a short rib thing,
Yes.
or, then it's delicious. Yeah, rigatoni's solid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's 3?
So these last 3, I feel like, are the last hurrah of summer pastas.
Good,
And
good,
so I
good.
have to give them their due. Number 3, now I know that a lot of you have heard of this one before, but this is a very specific type. And I can tell you where to buy it very easily. It's called fusilli corti bucati. And so you've heard of fusilli. It's the spiral pasta. But this one, the corti bucati.
I like to think that translates to pasta in my Bugatti.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Pasta
Okay.
in a car. This one, the spiral aspect is rounder, thicker. You can very easily buy this at Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's now sells this variety of pasta. It is fantastic for a summer pasta salad. I just love the shape of it. I love the way it looks. I just think it's an enchanting shape of a pasta, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then number 2.
Love this.
Number 2 is moved in. I almost ranked this last month in the top 9. But I didn't because I felt like I had some others that were vying for spots. But Michael made me a pantry pasta about 2 weeks ago. And Michael makes me pantry pastas pretty much once or twice a week. It's when we haven't planned dinner. And Michael and I are constantly trying to use stuff out of our freezer or pantry. Things that might go bad pretty soon, or just to save money on groceries, especially because inflation has been wild. And he'll just make up a recipe based on what we have in the pantry. And he did this with a pasta that we actually have made fresh before. We made it fresh for the first time about a year ago. It's from the island of Sardinia in Italy. It's called Melleredouce. And if you think is it cavatappi? No, not cavatappi. I'll come up with. There's another pasta that's very similar in shape to, but this one is kind of like slightly flattened oval with ridges. And it catches, for being like a smaller pasta shape, it catches quite a bit of sauce.
You mean cavatelli?
Cavatelli, thank you.
Yeah.
It's similar to the shape of cavatelli. That's what I wanted.
But like narrower.
Narrower.
Yeah.
It has the ridges like cavatelli, and it has like kind of like the bite of a gnocchi while not being as filling as a gnocchi, and having a complete obvious, it's not a round shape. It's more of an oblong or oval flattened shape. And you made such a delicious pasta with
very good.
Onion and guanciale about 2 weeks ago with Melleredouce that I had to put it at number 2. It needs its due. If any of our listeners are from Sardinia, I love this pasta very much. We made it fresh a year ago, and it was so much fun to make. It's a great pasta, everybody, to make with your kids. Saoirse joined us last year and helped us make it, and it was quite easy.
Yeah. Okay. Number 1.
Number 1, it did not change from last month. It is Mafalde or Mafaldine.
It's the Donald Trump of the pasta rankings.
It is,
yeah.
And we just had it 3 days ago. You made me the pantry pasta of the week 3 days ago was made with Mafalde and some fresh tomatoes and basil.
I crushed it.
You crushed that dish.
Yeah.
It was onions, fresh tomatoes, basil, and Mafalde. And now I have to go on Amazon and order us some more Mafalde because it was our only bag. But it's still number 1. That very long lasagna type pasta holds a place in my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's going to be, next month is October. Very much into fall, thinking about winter, hunkering down. Like I'm Ron Swanson in the episode where he's sick. I'm probably going to be putting more of the cold weather pastas near the top, and Mafalde's probably going to be kicked off.
I mean, I'll give the people something to look forward to.
I know.
Melissa, you got so serious for that. That was really attractive to me.
Wow.
But folks, there are your pasta rankings.
Oh boy.
And hope you try out. If you try out some of these pasta shapes, let us know. We want to hear about your experience with them. And yeah, I love doing the rankings episodes. I think once a month, it's a great sort of tradition that will
Something
be over.
for you to look forward to.
Yeah, something to look forward to. I hope our listeners have a great Labor Day.
Yes.
And that you're finding an opportunity to recharge in advance of the fall. As a reminder, check us out on whereweare.substack.com. Book your ticket for the Good of the Public Summit at ccpubliclife.org. Apply for the Public Life Fellowship, ccpubliclife.org. And pre-order Spirit of Our Politics. We just sent out the book for endorsements and for reviewers, and so it's been fun to see people get their hands on the book for the first time. I want you to reserve your copy of the book so that you can be sure to have it when it releases. All right, Melissa, that's all we have for this episode of Where We Are. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you next week. This is Where We Are.
Bye.
It's the end of the weekend, but I still wanna turn up. Yeah, I still wanna turn up.